All right, so the next step with this box model is going to be to add these side containers. I think we're going to start with this one on this side. It'll be a little easier because this one has to be split into two parts. So let's begin. Shrink that down a little. So we're going to put it on this side. And the first thing we're going to do is just create a reference geometry. We're going to create a plane that's off of this by, let's say, we'll see how 4 inches looks. Maybe we'll make it a little smaller. Let's go 3 inches. So that will be sort of the opposite side of that container. There we go. So we're going to start here on this sketch, flipping it around. This container is going to be kind of flush with the front side, but not quite as tall as the rest of the form. And so we're going to model it some height. Not quite sure what height yet. And we'll make the, let's see, make our relationships here. So this line to that edge would be collinear. There we go. We're going to toss in a height from there. I think we've got some sort of relationship defined. It really wants to attach that point. Let's see if we can fix that. Huh, maybe not. There it is. Let's see if I can get right there. Okay. 2.5 actually does look pretty good. So we'll leave that there. We're going to take this point and bring it all the way down to the bottom. We're just going to make the back of this straight. Close it off like that. So now we've got this sort of box. It's going to need some sort of depth. We'll do the top. I got 6 inches. So now we've got the sidewall. We're going to want to do feet, I think, on this one, very similar to the feet we have on the other piece. So quite easy. In this case, we can actually just reference a lot of things. We can even say that these two lines are parallel. These two are equal. We can trim that. Pull dimension off of this, and equals our global variable, which is foot there. And this one is equal to that one. There we go. And so we've got this side panel now sort of documented out, just like that. We could come in and do some notches and such for panels, but I think we'll do that in a bit. So there's the first side. We're going to extrude that inward by our global variable of mat. Not merge it. There we go. So we have the side panel. Now we just need to do the front, top, back, and bottom. So the top probably going to be pretty easy. The back's going to be super easy. The front may be a little tricky. So let's start working on the front here. So the way we're going to do the front in this case is going to be very similar. We could do it similar to that, but I actually think I'm going to do it slightly differently in this case. So what I'm actually going to do is start from this surface. I'm going to take my front panel, which I'm going to do as a rectangle. I know it's going to be the same height as the top here. we know it's going to have a matte thickness, same as our global variable. It's going to be collinear with that front edge. And it's going to come almost to the surface, so we want to get that back point on the surface. There we go, and our front point matches up like that. Great, so that's going to be our front panel. We're going to extrude that, and we're going to extrude it up to this surface. Whoops. Something would result in a 0. Oh, we don't want to merge. That's the problem. There we go. So now we've got this panel. And so one of the critical things with this particular panel is going to be how the bottom foot gets handled and how it gets mounted to this body. Because we already have this finger here and this will be sort of pre-assembled, we're actually going to have it tack in on this lower portion. And we're going to want this foot to sort of match visually. So the way we're going to do that, so let's start here and do the foot first. And so we're basically going to do just a cutout like this. That point is coincident to something I don't want it coincident to. There we go. And so this distance from this point to that edge is going to be equal to our global foot variable. There we go. And this point, we're going to line up with that. And we're going to use pierce in this case, as we want that point to go basically through there. And we also know that this angle is 60 degrees. We're going to do an extrude cut, lop that off, through all, select just that. There we go. Now we're going to add some tabs to this. Let's see, I think we'll do it from the front here. Add one tab off this way. Give it some dimensions. So the reason we're not doing these tabs from the side, although we could, so in the previous ones we did some tabs off the side to support the cell phone, and in that case those tabs were of equal length. In this case these two tabs are not going to actually be equal, and so rather than trying to use the same sketch like to extrude out, so the sketch on like that face extruded out this way, and then using the same sketch to go the other way, we're actually just going to do it from the front because this tab is going to be much shorter. It's also going to be longer as well, so it's actually like entirely different dimensionally. We are going to have to remember to cut our hole through though. So this tab we're going to make off there. Looks good, doesn't look like it's going to hit anything. And we're also going to make it, we want to make sure that it clears the bottom. And so the way we're actually going to do that is we are going to hide this front face. We want to select the top surface here and do intersection curve. So what intersection curve will do is it'll give us the line, that line, as a sketch of where this face intersects this plane. So this gives us a really good sense of where things are and if they're going to be in the way. And so this way we can then take that measure. And that is a parametric measure, so that if we do move this surface up or down, this line will move with it. And now this we want this to actually be coincident to that surface. There we go. So that when we cut it out, we'll have it'll fit all the way through. Great, looks good to me. So now we're going to extrude. We're going to extrude backwards. We could tell it matte depth, or we can just make sure that we click the edge of the part we're using. We're going to merge, but we're just going to merge with this. There we go. That looks good. And so now, though, we actually can use that sketch again. Do a cut. Do the cut. In this case, we'll actually do it at our material thickness. Whoops. That one. There we go. We want this geometry in that one. And we're going to say, yep. Okay, so now we've got the notches for those. So now we can do the top, and we can do the back, and everything will be quite easy. Let's do the back next, I think. That'll be really quite simple. So we'll sketch off the back of this. There we go. Just like that. I'm going to put in some tabs, one there and one on this side. Those don't appear to be hitting anything at all, which is good. So we want to do again that to this surface. This point we'll put on our line, although we're going to end up deleting it anyway to do the feet. We're just going to use the exact same sketch there. So we'll just convert and then trim. And we're going to get some upset things just because it's we drew that with the square, and it's sort of putting in some existing relationships. I probably should really have made that 0.75 a variable, a global variable. And then we could just call it like tab offset or something and make use of it versus entering it every time. But it's okay. I'm not going to worry about it too much. It's not that much trouble. You may be noticing that I do this sort of like zoom in, zoom out thing quite a lot. This is because just the way I have my SolidWorks configured and the way I've worked in it, that the scroll wheel is my zoom in, zoom out. And so I tend to sort of zoom out to the whole and then zoom into the area that I'm working because it zooms to your mouse pointer. Another option, if I zoom in on something, is to hold control and hold the center of the mouse, and I can pan. But I sort of like this zoom in, zoom out method. It lets me see the whole, and then I can zoom into where I'm working and do whatever I need to do. Go. Trim a whole bunch of stuff. Probably just delete that line. You can delete a lot of these construction lines. They don't actually help us in this case. There we go. So we've got our back modeled in. That looks good. Just wanted to make sure that that was on the surface there. we're going to extrude that direction by that. Do not merge the result. Thank you. There we go. All right, let's save. And something I haven't done lately, and it's good to check sort of as you're doing, just make sure things make sense, is if you just click on a feature, just checking to make sure that you are actually getting those global variables to sort of set in, so that you do have that little sum symbol, the equation symbol. So we've got our panel in here. Now we can easily just use that same sketch, do an extrude cut, make sure we have that from our sketch plane, that direction, that amount, but we're going to cut just this and that. There we go. So now we have our tabs in place. So there's two sides. Now we just need to do the top. Just a debate of how I want to do the top, whether I want it to fit in. I think I'm gonna have it just fit into everything in this case. So let's do the top on that surface. Oops. So we're gonna draw this one in with some lines instead. Go. All right, we want to make sure that, that is horizontal, that this point is actually on the inner face. Gonna actually want to take a look at something in a second. It seems I've got a relationship there that I don't want. There we go. So there was a moment there, and it may just be how that's rendering, but it sort of appears that that's not all the way through. I actually do want to take a look at that, so I'm going to exit the sketch, hide that, and just make sure, yep. For whatever reason, that is just like barely not all the way through. Huh. I wonder if the back's done the same thing. Yep. How strange. So although it's like almost through everything, or it's only gone through one layer? Ah, of course. That's what it is. So I missed the second panel in my scoping of those features. So let's go back in and real quickly, we'll fix that. So if we edit the feature, the issue was that I did not include the second panel in my scope. There we go. And same thing for this one. I missed including the second panel. So it's always a good idea to check. One of the ways you'll notice this is you'll see that sort of like shimmer of two faces occupying the same space. There we go. That fixes that problem quite easily. So there we go. So now we don't have that shimmer there. Everything's good. Excellent. Okay, let's go back to this sketch. And we're going to fix this. So I really want this. I guess it'll work. That'll give me a 0.75. So that will actually center that on that face. Let's see, this one from here. We just make some things equal. That one. This one, that one, and that one. And that one, and that one, and that one. There we go. So we need to be slightly careful. We can see we're getting kind of close to that, but I think we'll be just fine. You will notice that there is a slight gap going on there. So we'll have to just check when we extrude that to make sure that it clears everything. I think it should be just fine. All right. And finally, we need to set that point to that wall. Should already. So what is undefined? Possibly that one? Yep. So let's make that vertical. That solves that problem. There we go. Perfect. So now we're going to say extrude this down by Matt. There we go. I think that should be fine there. That we clear that back edge. And then we need to do one more time. We're going to end up with a fin on the front. But we'll fix that. It'll be okay. Or maybe we won't. We'll see. All right, so we're going to grab the same sketch again. We're going to say extrude cut. Our global variable. And we really want to make sure that we select all the things. So that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. All right. And so we have been left with a fin on this front piece. If I right click and I say isolate, this will bring us into isolation mode. It shows just the thing that we selected. It can sometimes be really helpful. So you'll see here that we've done two things that we actually really don't want to do. We've left a fin, and this cut is not parallel to that one. That will cause us lots of problems. But we do know that this point is sort of the correct point there where we want it to rest. So if I just sketch on this face, I can just sort of draw an arbitrary rectangle for the moment. It's going to be collinear with that one. It's going to be coincident with that one. And we just need to make sure it sort of covers everything else. So in this case, that point, whoops, this point needs to go there, or this line needs to be collinear with that one. There we go. And this point probably goes there. There we go. So now we have the right shape to cut out. And we can do an extrude cut just from this face to that point. Just that body, making sure. There we go. So now that's correct, and we can exit our isolate. And now we're back. And now that looks correct. All right, so let's save. We probably want a bottom on this, because I think we may, in our user study, have people pour things into this. And in doing so, we also may want a way of getting things out of this as well, which would be good. So let's see, how are we going to do that? So let's see, let's start with the getting things in, and then we'll worry about the getting things out problem. So getting things in, pretty straightforward. We're just going to make a hatch in the top. That's going to be a tape joint, so it'll be just a strip of tape that allows it to flip up, and then some sort of supporting structure just sort of tacked underneath, I think. So let's sketch on the top. We're going to cut a hole. Two by 3. Little hatch. We want it to be basically in the middle of this. So I'm just going to throw a construction line across there. Select its midpoint, select that one. Coincident. And we'll make this just the midpoint. Select that edge. There we go. That should work, and I'm going to round the front corners. There we go. Excellent. And so now we're just going to extrude cut that out. We're going to use up to next, which will just cut it through that part. There we go. That looks good. Now we basically want to add this thing back in, but with some slight modifications. So again, we're going to sketch on the surface. We're just going to take the loop. We're going to do a slight offset, like 0.01. We'll see what that looks like. Reverse. Yeah, so just slightly smaller than that part. Just so it fits in nicely. And yeah, should work. We're going to go down. We're going to go to our material thickness. Don't merge results. There we go. And so the way we're going to get this open is I think we're going to put a little round grabbable knob on top. Make that centered. Let's try that again. There we go. Some amount off from that edge. There we go. But one thing we're also going to do with this is we're going to select that sketch again, and we're going to do split line, and we're just going to split this face. And the reason for doing that is if we hide this little part here, this is going to leave us just a line marked on this face. And this will help us later when we actually go to laser cut this, that we'll have this sort of reference point, this reference line. So we'll probably etch that into our part, and by doing that, it'll let us know where to place that. Speaking of reference lines like that, we're actually going to go back in to here, and we're going to do something very similar. Let's see, I'm going to try to figure out the best way of doing this. There we go. So we want that line of that part, which is that boss extrude. But we may end up just doing it as a new sketch. So I think we're going to do sketch. We're going to grab just an edge, convert that entity. There we go. I really do want that part I hid to come back. wherever it is. It's part of lid. There it is. There we go. So now we're going to do a similar split line of that selection on this face and that face and that face and that face. We'll see if this works the way I want it to. Cool. So now if we just look at this part, I'm going to do that isolate again. We should have that ring there. Same thing goes for this one on that side. So that will help us just place that piece back in, and so it'll be in the right spot so the hinge will work properly. Cool. So we have this. So what will end up happening is we'll actually put a piece of tape across that surface there, and that will just let this piece hinge, and then we'll probably tuck on the underside just a piece of cardboard, and we'll cut that out, I think, ourselves with an X-Acto knife, just on this undersurface, and that will prevent it from falling back down through. It may hold itself up just fine, just due to the faces against each other, but we'll see. So the next thing to do, we probably want either a bottom on this, or maybe not. In this case, I think what we're actually going to do is just leave the bottom of this open. So we want to be able to recover whatever people pour into this. And probably the easiest way to do that is to have some sort of catching device. We could just toss a cup under there, but since we're being super special, let's actually make a little cup that's going to sit under there just for fun. So let's do that. We'll make a small box, kind of a perfect fit box for under there. And so to do that, we're actually going to start on, let's see, let's start on the bottom surface. Or maybe we'll start on the side. Let's start on the side. So we're going to make a removable cup. It's just going to sit underneath. We'll lift the whole device up and slide it out. This will be part of our reset procedure. And so this cup, see, I'm going to do lines, is going to be about whatever that is. I'm going to throw some dimensions on it. We're going to make it slightly, basically just a bit bigger than our opening there. And actually the back one here I'm going to set to be the exact same as the back. And so this way it'll kind of index nicely. So we know it'll just go right up against the back. There we go. There, that needs to be vertical. All right. Now what we want to do is cut a foot into it. We're going to trim that off, measure that, make that equal to our foot. There we go. We want to make these two lines equal. There. So that's going to be our bucket. In this case, we sort of know a lot about this bucket as well, so that it's going to have a bottom and it's going to have two sides, like a front and back and another side. So we can actually go in and do a lot of the extra modeling that we need to do. We're actually going to make use of this feature here because we know those dimensions already. that's going to be our mat thickness. There we go. Then we're going to also add the piece in for the bottom. Just going to go about there. And that's going to have the same mat thickness. And it's going to be let's do 0.75. That's been consistent. There we go. And let's put that 0.5. It's a little high. Let's drop that down a little bit. There we go. That works. I'm going to do another identical tab, equal and collinear. That one collinear as well. Excellent. So now we can trim that side. Yes, I know. There we go. Just set those in place somewhere. Should be fine. All right, so we've got our there we go. All right, so we've got our shape here. Gonna delete that. And so this is going to be our little box. Oops, it's actually a little too tall. This needs to be below, because we don't want it to be full height. It needs to be against the bottom of that, or probably just so we don't run into any problems, let's have it slightly offset from the bottom of that, so it'll be just a little bit shorter, which will be fine. Great. So we're going to extrude that. Our material thickness again. Don't merge. Cool, so there's one side. In order to get the other side, we're just going to mirror it. The way we're going to do that is we're going to need a plane to mirror it around. So in our first reference, we're going to select this side. Second reference is going to be that one. And it's going to give us automatically this mid-plane. It's in the middle. Perfect. Mirror. So that's going to be our, whoops, not plane 3, but that one. Plane 6 there. Our bodies to mirror are going to be this one. So there we go. So there's, whoops, 2 sides. Ooh. There we go. 2 sides. We locked up there for a moment. So we've got our 2 sides of this little extra box. Now what we want to do is do the front and the back and the bottom. And so we're going to just hide these components for a moment just so we can see a little better. This should be a piece of cake, being that basically everything is already sort of laid out for us. We just have to trace the lines. Roughing it in here, and I'll come back in and make sure everything lines up in a second. So that point to that point, that point to that point, that one to there. That point's in the right spot, that one goes there. We need a dimension from this point to the edge, which is equal to our foot. That line is the same as that line. It's the same as that line. There we go. This point goes there. These two are equal. In theory. Oh, maybe not. Actually, we're going to do this slightly differently. So although this is correct in terms of how we were doing things, so we get that like foot square kind of thing, I'm actually going to slide this over. Let me get my view correct here. I'm going to make this line and this one so that when viewed from the front, these sort of nest within each other. Let's see. So there we go. That works better. Let's see. That needs to go there. This needs to go here. And that there. Perfect. Great. So now we're just going to extrude that. A material thickness. There we go. And we're just going to need basically another one of those on the back side. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to mirror that one as well. So we're going to create another reference geometry plane. One there, one there. Whoops, not there. Let's try that again. We're going to need a plane that's in between, and so we want one there and one off the back side of that there. There we go. So now we've got that plane. We can bring back this part. Whoops. We forgot to add in the hole for the bottom. So let's fix that. So let's see. So if we click that point, that line, we can say coincident. This point and that line, we can also say coincident. So now our height is set. It's being referenced by the other piece. And we really just need to say some distance off this side. 5, and then probably just take that. Midpoint, midpoint, vertical. Done. Now we can do our mirror. Our mirror face plane is plane 7. Bodies to mirror is that one. There we go. Now we've got our box, and so now all we have to do is do the bottom of it, which we can just sketch on that surface. And if we take that surface, this one, and also that one, and convert the entities, that basically gives us our guide. So we can just delete those 4 interior lines. And then just connect the dots. What I'm doing there when I'm like clicking and swiping, what I'm actually doing is there's this quick select menu if you hold your right click. And so if you just sort of right and move to the left, you end up with a line tool. You'll see me do that a lot to get to dimensioning, where I right click and I go up. But it's something you can actually do very quickly, and you can configure that toolbar as well. All right, cool. So we've got our base there. We can extrude this guy, and we'll just do it as sort of a relative up to that vertice we don't want to merge. There we go. So we now have a box to catch whatever gets poured into there. Let's bring back some parts here. And not only do we have that box looks pretty good. Kind of makes sense under there. All right, we're going to bring back the front. Okay. So now that we've got this kind of side done, we're going to do another one on the other side, but it's going to be a removable bin. It's basically going to start out in a very similar manner, but we're going to sort of plan it out, figure out where the split's going to be, and split it. Let's save. Saving is a good idea. But I think I'm going to do that one in a separate video. So we'll stop this one for here, for now, and we'll add in, so the next video we'll do the other bin, and if you just don't feel like watching that one, you skip it. Cool.